Okay, so here we are. Tim, it's nice to meet you. Welcome to our little expose of, poets and writers and artists and activists and all that kind of stuff. But it's good to meet you. Um, if you would, I think I have something. Is Valentine calling me? Okay. Anyway, at any rate, if you could tell us a little bit about you.
About my what? Sorry, you cut out at the very end there.
No, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, okay. Well, where do I begin? I guess I was. What can I say about me? I've been a musician most of my life. Poetry came as a bit of an escape
Okay.
in my early teens, preteens, and then it morphed into lyric writing for a lot of people that I was working with.
Mhm.
Uh, a lot of musicians I would work with, I ended up writing lyrics because there aren't a lot of people that actually it's strange in the music world. A lot of people either don't know how to write compelling lyrics or just don't enjoy it. They're
Mhm.
fun for them as the chord changes and the progressions and how the song is going to feel and sound.
Mhm.
And then when it comes to lyrics, it's a blank slate. I don't know. So sometimes I've jumped in and helped people out. Sometimes I've
Right.
with people. Sometimes my poetry has fit songs. So kind of all over the place there. I've lived in the province of Quebec for about 30 years. So yes,
Okay.
no wonders I do speak French as well.
Okay.
There is a French poem in the book, actually. So
Okay.
um, I would say like I'm a lover of the arts. I like to say that I'm a lover of all cats. I love cats.
Okay.
A friend to all cats, and um, I don't know. I lean a little bit to the save the world, save the earth side of things.
Okay.
Please, so like I don't know. I mean, I could tell you, I've been drumming and playing music for over 45 years. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's been a while. So.
Yeah. I see some symbols in your background. So basically, I take it that your foundation is drumming.
I started on the piano actually.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The piano's over there.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So my mother started me on piano when I was a young kid, and then the band Kiss when I was 10 years old ruined everything for my mom because then I started thinking drums were cool. So
Uh-huh.
and then I played
Yeah.
drums throughout high school in the orchestras, all the different orchestras they had.
Okay. Yeah. I'll tell you a quick little story. When I was a kid, I guess it was about fifth grade. Um, all my life I like beating on things to the point I used to get chastised for drumming. I sit at the table, my fingers are going and whatever, and my aunts and my mother, like, would you stop that? Would you stop that? So about fifth grade, they had a program where they wanted the children to join the band or the orchestra. So
Yeah,
of course, I just knew that the drums were the things for me.
there you
And
go.
my mother, who I've not forgiven as of yet, enrolled me for the clarinet. Yeah,
Oh,
so I played that for years. But yeah, that always strikes me funny when I see drummers. Um, so you had mentioned something about lyrics, you
mhm.
know, and to some extent, from my understanding, lyrics mirrors poetry, mirrors lyrics.
Yeah.
And a few times in my past, I had an opportunity to write some lyrics, for an organization. I don't know if you ever heard the Sound of Philadelphia, um, but one of the Philadelphia International Records, one of the execs, they wanted me to write some lyrics, and I just could not wrap my head around it because lyric writing is quite different, in its own nuances than just poetry, you know. Even though it's poetry, I mean, because you got your bridges, you got your refrains, and all the other technical stuff that goes along with lyric writing, that does not necessarily apply to poetry, you know. But then again, if you're Bob Dylan, you can just write a story and it becomes the lyrics for that particular song. So when you think in terms, or when you speak about your experience in writing lyrics, what stands out to you in being the difference between lyrics and poetry?
I think it started because, of course, most poets start, I find, writing free verse. You just train of thought, right? So you
Right.
write the sky blue, clouds of white, and so you write sort of in a free verse kind of thing,
Right.
which translate into music normally, right? So it was a good friend of mine, John Greenberg, when we were kids. We were trying to, we're starting to write. We're probably
Mhm.
terrible musicians, but we're trying to write new original material. And one of the things I found was that there's a structure within lyricism that you have to, there's a beat,
Okay.
right? It's you
Right.
have to find first you have the melody that the singer is going to sing,
Right.
and then you have
Right.
to find, and you start thinking about words that end well. So like don't
Okay.
or a word that ends with a that kind of diphthong at the end of a sentence, right? So or an end of
Okay.
a phrase, because you can't say we're going with because it's not a word that a singer can hold. So
Okay.
start to readjust. Okay, so what do I want to say, and how can I say that differently, still within the confines of the structure of the beat
Okay.
that's with pata 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 with the lyrics, and
Mhm.
occasionally some free form may fit, right?
Mhm.
I wrote a song, and a few of my lyrics and songs are in this book. One of the
Okay.
I know is Valentine's favorite is Open Wallets, and it was just a poem that I'd gotten upset about watching televangelists, fleecing people that have no money for money. So I was watching them and getting
That's their job. That's their job.
the
We
same.
need those jets. We need those jets, to fly around the, you
I
know.
did three Lear jets. So yes. So I was right. I just wrote something out, just train of thought, just get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. And then it sat on a whiteboard for the better part of a year because I didn't know what to do with it. Do I write
Okay.
it? Do I rewrite it? What do I do? And then
Mhm.
when we're playing a musical part to it, and I figured, wait a minute, I figured out how to make this fit music, which is usually counterintuitive for me to start with lyrics and then write the music. I mean, Elton John is good at that. I'm not.
Okay.
I have to start usually with music first and then make the lyrics fit to it, right?
Okay.
So in this case, I got this song together, played it for my friend Paul, who's also one of Valentine's authors.
Right. Mhm.
He and I put this thing together, put this song together. I wrote it, but it sounded better, sounded so rinky dink on piano, but it sounded great on a really distorted electric, angry guitar, right?
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, so sometimes it can be both, but for the most part, I find that writing lyrics, there's a pattern, there's a feel there, and you've got to again, the mouth sounds, what feels good for the singer to say.
Right. Right. Okay. That's
Yeah.
an interesting point. I notice, okay, I'm a poet at core. Okay. I started back in 1966 writing poetry or
Right.
being committed to writing poetry. So, it's part of my blood, it's my DNA.
Yeah.
Um, and you mentioned earlier free verse. I'm more of a, not more, I am a free verse writer because I always had a disdain for structure,
Mhm.
not only in poetry, but in all other aspects of my life as well. But one of the things, being a publisher and being a writer, a seasoned writer, who I've encountered and dealt with thousands of poets over the years, as I watch, let's say, um, newbies come along,
Mhm.
okay, and their perception of what poetry is with these forced rhyme things,
Yeah.
and times these forced rhymes have no relevance to what the theme is of what they're writing about, but they just needed something to rhyme, so they figure out a word that rhymes and they throw it in there.
Yeah.
So now, when I look at lyrics, for the most part, other than writers like we say, Bob Dylan or Bob Denver, even going way back, you
Yeah.
know, Jim Croce, they wrote stories. It was a narrative.
I think you meant John Denver, Bob Denver's Gilligan.
Oh yeah, John Denver, right, John Denver. You,
No,
I,
maybe he's a
right,
poet too. We didn't know it, right? So
maybe, but
yeah.
they wrote stories,
Yeah.
and the like even Crosby, Stills, and whatever, yeah, again, they wrote stories, and the stories fit the music. I don't know whether they composed the music to the story that they wrote or juxtapose the story to the music that they wrote. I suspect that they wrote the story first, since they are stories.
Possibly.
Yeah. Um, but when I look at these newbie poets that are forcing rhymes, for some reason, and forgive me, I assimilate that with, a large amount of lyricists that
Yeah.
feel compelled to have to rhyme, you know,
Right.
and I don't know if you call it stanzas, per se, like we do in poetry, but they feel compelled to rhyme, you
Yes.
know. And I think to me as a poet, that kind of curtails, if you would, the creative process
Mhm.
of allowing it to flow. So when I talk about you, and I read a few of your books, a few of your pieces, you seem more of the individual that just kind of allowed as opposed to constructed.
Yeah,
Would that be a clear analysis?
I think so. I mean, when I started as a kid, of course, it was all free verse and it was,
Okay.
a lot, I love you, why don't you love me? And, love, 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 that sort of like fluffy stuff. And I
Okay.
a lot of those old poems, like when I first started the book, I thought maybe there's something in here to salvage. And I went through it and I went, oof, no, no, no.
Okay.
These are the ramblings of a 13-year-old kid that's figuring out how to do this. So, the only person that could ever find that interesting, maybe, is me. So
Okay.
I'll put that out to the world. So as
Right.
far as like songs go, like when a lyric comes in, I don't like I'm not consciously saying, like in the case of Mary had a little lamb, and now I'm looking for a rhyme for lamb. I'm trying to what am I trying to say? What's coming out of me? Right. And
Hmm.
I can go back and move stuff around, which is the joy of computers these days. I used to have to scratch all that stuff out and rewrite and finally get what I wanted, then write it all out by hand in the way I wanted it. But I will do editing afterwards if I find that something's
Okay.
clumsy, something is overly cliche. But I mean, unless
Okay.
it's supposed to be cliche, unless I'm, throwing out a cliche to be cliche, right? Like
Okay.
so,
Gotcha.
yeah, I will like when I'm structuring the rhymes, it's I'm not thinking I write something out and I'm like, her color was orange, and then I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do now, right? Or maybe I can rhyme it with borange or scorange, or you know what I mean? Like I'm not going to force that out. I
Exactly.
I might change orange and think orange doesn't work there, or maybe orange gets moved to
Okay.
the phrase. So
Okay.
have to end up with that. And then a lot of this stuff just kind of happens. I'm sure you experience
Yeah.
this. You just start and it's like pen to paper, and all of a sudden 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes later, you're kind of done looking at something going, wow, where'd that come from?
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's sometimes that happens a lot, I think.
Right. Right. I have a great admiration to a relative degree for rappers.
Oh,
Okay. Because that's a whole different genre of lyric or poetry writing. And they can get away with so much that we can't, because I think a lot of their rhymes are not necessarily rhymes, but, intonations of
yeah,
how to say something, you
yeah.
know, makes it appear as a rhyme. So it's just kind of interesting. Have you ever written anything like that? That was supposed to be for spoken word or rap or anything? Or
Well, if you look at too, a lot of it is very structured, right?
Mhm.
The beatbox is going ta 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 ta,
Right.
and they're following that, and they're sitting on the. And then I think sometime in the 90s, rap shifted and they started to sort of flow, sort of be more rubato over top of what's going on. And the
Right.
story got more intense,
Mhm.
and they could the color different pictures, right? So
Okay.
it was fascinating. It's almost like rap went from like super tight, rigid rules
Right.
to looser, almost free verse, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Where
Exactly.
now it's all about the message and less about what's happening behind it.
Right. 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 I got you. I got you. We talked about briefly about where you started as a 13-year-old with a friend writing.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to point out, do you still have any of that work that dates back to those years?
Oh yeah, I have all of it still.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so let me ask you this. I'll lend you to my perspective. What is your if you would to be redundant, what is your perspective when you look back at that 13-year-old Tim, to the Tim that you are now? What is the difference? What is the impact that it has on you?
I think it's great. There's I look at it and it's like when you first start to have feelings for a partner, right? Or so a girl,
Okay.
guy, or whatever in your grade school class, right? And you're starting to like
Okay.
you're trying to notice them, and you're clumsy and you don't know how to talk to somebody because
Mhm.
10 days before you were best friends and you hung out and talked, and now all of a sudden your mouth goes dry and your tongue's three sizes person because now you have different feelings for them, right?
Uh-huh. Hmm.
Poetry is a lot like that too. That I was writing was very free verse. It was just I was constantly writing, just writing, 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 and again, a lot of it is very cliche. A lot of it is "I love you" and
Right,
rhyming
right,
mile and while and like easy words when I started to.
right, right.
I think I really started hitting something where things got better was when I was 17 because
Okay,
it actually is funny. There are a few poems from when I was 17 in the book.
okay,
Um, and it was when I was working at a self-serve Texaco gas station and they made me work the midnight shift, right? So I'm sitting there doing nothing for 6 of the 8 hours that I'm working.
okay,
So I would just sit there and write poetry and it's just almost
okay.
better and better and better and better at it. And I still have some of them written on the back of a cash out sheet that, because I would this idea that I have and then take it home. And yeah, so
Yeah,
that's where I really started to structure stuff. When John and I really got musically close and we're doing a lot of things as well. And then John and I've done hundreds of things together since.
okay. Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. It's funny that you're saying that, where you wrote. I remember matchbook covers, toilet paper, napkins in the restaurant, the back of my hand, my pants leg, like, when the bug calls and says, okay, write, I mean, if you're a true writer, that's what you do. You follow, the instruction that it gives you just to kind of capture that message or
yeah.
that inspiration. Now, you mentioned that you had, some of the stuff from the old days in your book Semaphore. Um, can you point one out and read it for us?
The very first poem in the book is from when I was 17.
Okay, and let's say that would be
Yeah. So Shadow on My Mind.
Shadow of My Mind.
And it's also a song now too. So
Okay,
this is one that was written in reverse. It was I gave these lyrics to my friend Paul and
okay,
inspired him to write some music around it. So there is a
okay,
recording somewhere. But yeah, and that again, the recording happened when I was in my mid 20s. So the song's like, already 8, 10
okay,
at that point. So or the lyrics, I guess. And
okay,
the title came out of a song I was listening to by a band. I don't know if you remember these guys called The Firm, which was Jimmy Page and Paul Rogers' super band
okay, yeah, okay,
company broke up, right?
right,
There was just one line that Paul Rogers sang, and I went, "Oh, I love that line."
okay,
And then I just sat there and started writing out this poem, and that line appears nowhere in my poetry, but it's the title of the poem. So
okay,
yeah. So
okay. Could you read that for us?
read the poem. All right.
Yeah. Let's indulge in your
Pressure's
reading
on,
voice.
man. Pressure is on. So this is a reading by Tim Vandeven. I should get my pompous jacket and smoke a pipe while I do this. The torch lit late burns bright. Your memory's but a wraith. The day seems dark as night, and I can't see your face. My eyes just watch the rain, a symbol of desire, a requiem of pain, a scimitar of fire. Just step inside my mind, a cloudy, smoky room. Missing you is unkind, it darkens up my gloom. Just cast off all the doubts of my faithfulness. Don't listen to the shouts of their thoughtlessness. To walk into the light, to change a dreary tune, to change dark into light, it can't be done too soon.
Okay.
Yet another
Yeah.
song, another
Go
poem
ahead.
I
Go ahead. You were going to say something?
said yet another poem about a girl.
Oh, okay. Because I was getting ready to ask you, like, you know, I, if I go back to my youth,
Mhm.
and examine the poetry I wrote then, it was always the epitome of me
Mhm.
spiritually, soulfully, mentally being in a place and almost like being stuck in that place or stuck on that particular theme. And that's what the poetry epitomized. Um, Whereas now it's like, I think that the inspiration comes from a lot of different sources, and it's probably a collection of the experiences, the existentialism of those experiences that form themselves. Because I know a lot more words these days than I did when I was 17, number one. Um, so when you think you said it was about a girl, tell us, was it about a girl that you were in love with? Or a girl that, I mean, what was the feeling? Where did you feel it? It sounds like as if you felt tortured by that experience, you
There was
know?
a distance, and it's funny, like when you're 17 years old, and if someone lives a couple towns over, they might as well live on the moon, right?
Yeah.
Someone that I'd met that I really liked, she liked me, but she lived, a good couple hours drive from where I was growing up, right?
Okay.
So that might as she might as well have lived on the other side of the planet, right?
Okay. Right.
So trying to sort of reconcile that, and we were writing because to each other, writing letters to each other.
Hmm.
There was like she had said that and in one message she had mentioned that one of her friends had said something like, "Oh, your boyfriend's far away. Like you think he's not kissing other girls." So
Okay.
that kind of stuff plays on people, right? So, and as a 17-year-old, you don't have the capacity yet to deal with this stuff, right?
Right. Right.
So this was my escape. I wrote this about her, and it didn't work out, of course. I mean, I don't know very many people that met at 17 that are still together today. So,
Yeah.
but it didn't work out, and it was cathartic in a way. I'm expressing like,
Okay.
oh, this didn't work out. Why, it's all about thinking that why can't I? Why didn't you live closer? That's too bad. Or why don't I live there? That's the whole what if thing is buried in there. So.
Right. Right. Many times at that age in my early adulthood, I found myself utilizing poetry, using poetry, the sheet of paper, because back in those days, it was just a pen, pencil, and paper. If
Yeah.
you're lucky, you had access to a typewriter, if you're lucky, but nobody wrote necessarily on a typewriter. We used that for transcribing from the paper to whatever.
Yeah.
But I use poetry as how do I say it? As a means to supplant my courage to speak, you
Well,
know?
I like it. That's really well said.
Yeah. Um, did you find yourself in the same place like you had mentioned earlier, awkward in reference to speaking?
Hmm.
So was poetry your substitute? That, like they say, liquid courage, but your syllabic courage, to say things that you normally would not say things out loud.
Mm. It was a way for me to sort of reconcile my world and square the circle that was,
Okay.
you know. So, and again, when it morphed into songwriting, all of a sudden people, then all of a sudden it's sort of a useful thing. And I mean, it was useful before, but now it's a little more broadly accepted that, oh, Tim's writing the lyrics for the songs you guys,
Okay. Okay.
you know. So, I think too, it's yeah, you could hide in stuff a little bit, and I could say things in my poems that maybe I wouldn't say to somebody, or that
Right.
maybe I wouldn't even say to myself.
Right. 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 Pretty early on, tell you another quick little story. I was about 7, 8 years old, and my father was a veteran of the Korean War.
Mhm.
So we lived in a house where, the bedrooms were upstairs and, living room, dining room, kitchen downstairs. So I was coming down the stairs, and at the bottom of the stairs, my father they had hung a picture of him with his troop, standing in front of a ship, like a kind of group class picture or whatever.
Yeah.
So me, I'm 7, 8 years old, very precocious, very whatever. So I come downstairs and I point to the picture and I say ship. And excuse me. And my mother smacks me, because she thought I said shit, as opposed to, because a 7, 8 year old, they say boat, So that was probably one of the turning points that forced me into the writing as a means of expression because my mouth was quicker than my brain a lot of times, you know. Um,
Same.
so, yeah. So as time went on, when I committed to writing, um, part of the motivation was that what I put on paper was my business and my business alone.
Yeah.
The paper did not refute me, kick back, critique me, or condemn me, or any of that other nonsense that happens in real time, real life. So it also became like a shelter. Like we had mentioned a few minutes earlier. Where one could hide. You
Yeah.
know, behind. And if you didn't want to share, you just didn't share it. Um, when so getting around to that, when you think in terms of your writing, um, what per se is your motivation? I know we danced around this theme a bit, but what is your motivation as to why does Tim write per se?
Well, pardon me. I think it started as a kid to escape and to have some control over my life.
Okay.
Poetry, I could be I could be I could be the white knight, right? So the girl that I like that, is in my mind is with the wrong guy. In my,
Okay.
I'm the guy that's going to save her, right? So I can
Okay.
control the narrative when it started. Then
Okay.
I realized that poetry and songwriting became easier when I wasn't exactly happy. Like I found it difficult to write songs when things are going really, really well because
Okay.
everything's like, you're so great. I'm so great. We're both so great, great, great. And then you're just like, oh my God, what is that? You know? So, and I found that my poetry, when there's just I don't know, the only way you can say it is like there's a bit of grit in the machine, right?
Okay. Okay.
Making it a little bit, things are not working as well as you want to in life.
Okay.
Love or loss of people or anger towards people that that are saying things that you disagree with. And I don't necessarily mean politically. I just mean in general. If
Hmm.
it's talking poorly of a person and you can't wrap your head around why they're doing that, and then
Okay.
sort of something like that. It's Yeah, I find that it'll just, and I hate to use this word because it's not that it's overused, but I don't want to use it in an incorrect way and diminish it for other
Hmm.
people, but just a little bit of trauma in a way, like
Okay.
unrequited love, loss of a person moves to the other side of the country and stops talking to you, or
Right.
things aren't working out the way you wanted to. You look around the room you're sitting in and you say, "Oh, is this what I was hoping for? I don't think so." You know,
Hmm.
sort of things like that come out.
Hmm.
You know, but to say again, there's a fair bit of unrequited love in the book.
Okay.
There is some loss as well. There's a few people in there that I speak about that I've lost, like to death. Um, but yeah, I think that's where a lot of it comes from. I suddenly feel a need to do it, you know.
Okay.
Mm, I feel like I feel compelled to.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
something wants to come out, even if it comes out all sideways and wrong. I can just,
Hmm.
you said, on your sleeve, on your arm, on your hand,
Right.
or
Right. Right. Right.
you over at Denny's and you're writing on the back of that, right?
Right.
So
Right.
like, just get it out, get it down somewhere, and take it, and then look at it the next day and go. You know what? I like a lot of this.
Right. Right.
I kind of piece it back together. That happens sometimes. But again, sometimes too, it just out it comes. You know,
Okay.
what?
Okay.
And it's like, okay, where did that come from? I don't
Right.
have, you know.
Right. It's interesting you say that. I've always, said to myself, well, let me put it this way. I'm not pulling punches about this. I have a personal relationship with my muses.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, in that there are three primary muses. There's a love muse.
Hmm.
Okay. There's a social commentary muse, and
Yeah.
there's a spiritual commentary muse. And all of them have their own consciousness,
Mhm.
in which they write or play with words to get their messages across, or whatever the case may be. Um, so when you think in terms of your muses or your inspiration, another word from muse, your inspiration, um, is there a particular vein that really kind of floats your boat as far as writing? Is it love? Is it social commentary? Is it spiritual? Or is it a combination of all these things?
I would say it probably skews a little heavier towards love.
Okay.
And then sometimes I would say almost an intellectual thing where it's something is shaking out that isn't love, that isn't necessarily
Okay.
about a social commentary, but it's about an idea. So the idea
Okay.
comes to fruition. I mean, a few times it was funny. About 2 years ago, again working with my friend John, who I've mentioned, and I'm in
Mm,
my late 50s, and so is John, and we've known each other since 1980. So
okay.
uh, I had sent him a poem. We were working on music, an album together, and
Okay.
he's in British Columbia, so closer to Valentine's time zone than ours. So he's
Okay.
off Vancouver Island, off of the coast of British Columbia. I'm here in
Okay.
Ontario, and I just said, John, I just had this weird thought last night, and I wrote this poem, and I don't even know if it's any good. What do you think? And a
Okay.
day later, he sends me music set to the poem, and he's singing it.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, okay. And the poem was essentially me thinking about the very first girlfriend I ever had, you know?
Okay.
So it was just, and it wasn't me saying, oh my God, I wish I had just stuck with her. It was more of, I wonder, I just thought of you out of the blue. I just randomly thought of you. Do you ever sort of think of me? So
Mm,
that kind of thing. That's where that came from.
okay.
Love is probably, or yeah, love and compassion. That's probably the biggest of the three muses, or the three, if
Okay.
you want to be, if you want to be all Shakespearean, of the three fates. So yeah,
Yeah. It's funny. You had mentioned, your relationship with John,
yeah,
and yeah, I always find it amusing, sometimes entertaining, even though I have this firm belief, that everything is connected, you
mhm.
know, um, that I'm always amazed, like say that example you gave, you wrote a poem, you sent it to somebody, they got it, you know, um, how certain creative things are transcended. We see that in music a lot. Like,
Yeah.
for example, if you got on the drums and start laying down a beat, you know, that somebody or a lot of people, across the globe would be tapping their feet to the boot because they got it, you know, and I always find that, if you would, rewarding, when someone comes along and says, "Hey, I got it," because a lot of times, as if we want to say creatives, the truth of the matter is we're not the creatives, we're the vessels
Yes.
from which things flow through us. And we just happen to be able to interpret it and put it down on paper or put it down on a score sheet or, whatever the case may be. You
We're
know,
conduit. We're conduit. You know.
yeah, conduits, exactly, exactly, exactly. Let me ask you this. Tell you, I'm good for quick little stories. Okay.
Okay.
Uh, Back in 2011, um, yeah, I was doing a lot of radio back then. We were doing like 13 shows a week. Well, on one of our shows called the Artist Lounge, the host Jill Dalbridge had was doing an interview similar to this, um, with a poet by the name of Monty Smith, and he was very instrumental in the inauguration of the Red Bull, you know, phenomenon. That was back when it was more about the arts than it was about the sports.
Right.
you know. Um, and he was on the show, and this show was comprised mostly of poets, and listeners, people, that were patrons. I hate to say patrons, but listeners of poetry, because it would be nice if we had more patrons. But the point of the matter is that these are people that enjoyed listening, to poetry. And when he got on the mic, when he got on the mic and had the opportunity to speak, he said one thing about we poets, and he says, like you have a lot of poets, and I'm paraphrasing here. We have a lot of poets. They write poetry. They do this. They do that. He says, like, what is it that you wish for your poetry to do? Like, why do you write poetry in the first place? And Monty, if you would, is an activist. He has like kind of a borderline angry type of approach to life, because things that are nonsense, he just dismisses, or refutes them, not necessarily quietly, but, very, very, loudly, if you would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So from that, I myself, now at that point in time, I probably was writing poetry for some 40, going on 50 years or more. And even I was inspired by that. So we created a series called I Want My Poetry To. And we put that on a Facebook thread, and people were writing their poetry, and we collect that, and we created a book called I Want My Poetry To. We have since then done 4 issues, of evoking poets to tell us and, disclose, well, what is your purpose, so to speak? Like, why do you choose poetry? Why have you allowed poetry to choose you? So here's my next question. I paraphrased it beautifully. I got to cut myself with the short. But so I'm talking to you and I'm saying, okay, by happen chance, through a very dear and mutual friend, we happen to encounter each other. So I'm curious, as to, other than the circumstance that you met this guy and y'all wrote some poetry or whatever, from a soul perspective, what is your purpose? What do you want your poetry to do? What wakes you up every time, or wakes that pen up every time that it writes? What is it? What is the connection in reference to what you want your poetry to do?
Well, I could say picking up the pen or opening the computer to Microsoft Word now or whatever it is. I think it happens because it has to. I don't think I have a choice in the matter anymore. I used
Okay.
to was younger. I think that I was, it's like a muscle, you lift enough weights and your arm gets big or something, right? So
Okay.
I was younger and I was, treading out every cliche possible and rhyming
Okay.
life with strife and wife and knife and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Right. I think that I got better at it. And then I got to a point where I didn't have a choice anymore, where
Okay.
I'm thinking about something and I have to put this down and I have to put it down. It's like I guess it's like people that they journal their day. I went to the store and the cashier was nice to me. But that's what works for them, right? I have to. It's like, why do I still play music in my 50s? I'm not famous. I didn't get signed to a major record label deal or anything like that. I had some decent success, but I have to. I don't have a choice. It's ingrained in me. It's like it's so in me that I don't have a choice anymore. And then
Okay.
part of your question about what do I want the listener or the reader to feel, I think it's really subjective because it's going to be sometimes the reader gets exactly what I'm saying, right?
Mhm.
And they feel every word, every syllable, every letter, they're lined up with me.
Okay.
There are other readers that are going to get something else entirely differently from it, right? So,
Okay.
like for instance, the famous example of "Every Breath You Take" by the Police, with people playing
Okay.
their wedding song, and Sting says, "No, I wrote that about stalking. It's not a nice song," And people are like, "Yeah, but every breath you take, I love you." That's their interpretation of Sting's.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I'm a firm believer that once you make art and you put your art out and you put it out for public display, whether it's a book, it's a painting, it's a song, it's a movie, it's a clip, whatever it is, it's a photo, it's no longer yours, it's theirs. They can interpret it through whatever lens
Yeah.
that they're using.
Right. Right.
For instance, in 2000, and it's in the book, I mentioned this in the preamble in the book. In 2001, I love Gustav Klimt's paintings, right?
Okay.
The show. at the National Art Gallery in Canada when I was living in Ottawa at the time. So I have to go see this, right? So we're
Mhm.
looking at the classic ones, the Kiss and all this other stuff that, you've seen a million times. And then I saw one of a painting of a woman with her eyes closed, laid down in it looks like a pillow behind her head. And
Mhm.
it completely ripped me apart. I got really sad. I was like, oh my God, this painting is really hurting me, and I hadn't even read what it said underneath because it's written, the original title's written in German. I don't speak German. And
All
so,
right.
and I'm just looking at this painting, I'm going, oh my God, this thing's killing me. And my friends who were with me are like, yeah, it's nice. It's a nice painting, but I don't know what's hitting you. I don't feel it. And then I read the thing underneath it that said Rhea, I think her name was Rita Monk, on her deathbed, essentially a young woman who had committed suicide, and the family had asked him to paint her likeness of her laying in her coffin, but take the coffin part out. So it's not like, so it's one of those things that was so profound for me, and everyone around me was like, oh well, yeah, it's nice. I mean, she's pretty, you know but to me, that's what art is, and what you're putting out is that you'll read one of my poems and you'll say, wow, okay, this part really made me think of this and this and this and this.
Mhm.
maybe that
Yeah.
wasn't my, maybe that wasn't my goal at all, but you know what, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. You're talking about um, your writing a little bit earlier, and
Mhm.
you're talking about a portion of your writing is pretty much automatic. In other
Yeah,
words, you open the back door, open the front door, and just kind of pours right through you.
yeah.
I know that from my personal experience. A lot of times I'll go back and I'll read my poetry, and something I'll pick up something I did not get through that processing,
Mhm.
what have you. And then there's like, you're talking about, everybody has their own lens, that I'll write something and someone will come up with some commentary. And I'm like, what are they talking about? That's, whatever. And then if you allow yourself to, receive it, you realize that, this whole concept of art,
Mhm.
and I say art in general because all art is literally bigger than we are, you
Yeah.
know, um, and especially especially epitomized, if you would, through word art, specifically poetry, poetry lyrics, because everybody is in their own place, you
Mhm.
know, and certain words trigger certain things, whether it's a memory or experience, a projection, a dream, a fear, a doubt, a desire, or whatever. And we're not the same.
No.
You know? So when someone comes along and says, you know, hey, this is what I read your poem. This is what I got from them. That again reiterates how much bigger this thing is than we are.
Indeed, I think it does. I said in the book, I believe that not only is art subjective, which of course it is, but I think art
Mm-hmm.
can also be a mirror. So art is a mirror. So
Yeah.
as you're holding up my poem, it might be reflecting something on you that I didn't put in it, right? So you're
Okay.
your own mirror, or vice versa, or that, because I think that sometimes you learn about yourself through art as well. Like, why did you go to the why? With Klimt's exhibit, why did that painting hit me that hard? You know,
Okay.
no one else in the room was getting upset. I was the only one getting upset, and I normally don't walk into art galleries and start crying. I'll be honest.
Okay.
So it was what, why did that one painting do that to me? And I don't even know if I can't say that that's what Klimt was trying to make me feel.
Right.
I'm not in his head. I don't know what he meant, right? But maybe
Mm-hmm.
reflecting something of me back onto me, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Loss and loss. So maybe that's what it was too. You can't. I don't think you can really. With art, like I said, it's almost like the way that sea turtles lay their eggs, right? Once you make
Mm-hmm.
it, and they all hatch and they all disappear into the ocean. There's nothing else you can do. You have to let everyone else enjoy it, interpret it, look at it through their lens. Like, a poem might be that someone reads it and goes, whatever, I found it kind of trite. And someone else might say, oh my God, that totally pulled my soul out of my body. Like, how did you do that?
Mhm.
Or then, like you said earlier, where you write out your poetry, you're having that moment where it's just coming and you're just the key, you're typing away, right? And at the end of it, you look at it a couple days later and go, oh man,
Mhm.
oh that,
Yeah. Yeah.
that me? Oh, okay, all right. You
Yeah.
know, yeah.
And going back to connectivity, I'm going to tell you again another little story. um, back in the 1700s, there was this poet by the name of William Ernst Henley,
Mhm.
and he wrote the famous poem Invictus, which
Yeah.
I'm the captain of my own fate. You know, Now the person I'm going to talk about, they didn't know each other because one's from the 20th century, one's from the 17th century, 16th, 18th century, whatever. Um, but this guy from the 20th century read this poem every day for 27 years.
Okay.
I am the captain of my own fate. Um, and so the impact this guy from a few hundred years before him, had was profound because this person that read it for 27 years um, was, incarcerated on Robben Island. And he, from this poem, directly or indirectly, whatever, had an effect on billions of people as a result of this. And his name was, Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
So it's very, very interesting. Like I've had occasions, not to that profound degree, where someone would come back years later and says, I read something you wrote, and I'm not going to say it changed my life, but it had an impact on me. You know, um, you know, I kind of think, and forgive me for talking too much, but I kind of think that, we as artists and specifically poets, have a subverted vanity
Mhm.
in that we hope or we say we would like our work to have an effect
Mhm.
on the things and people and circumstances around us. And a lot of times, because of our fear of that vanity, we keep our mouths shut, you know. So, um, you know, uh, whereas like someone that might be more braggadocious says, "Oh, I wrote this poem today. I want everybody to read it and show you and tell me what you think of it,
Tell
whatever
me
the
how
case."
great I am. Tell me how great I am. Yeah. No, I know people like that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if we can kind of peel back a layer of that onion, so to speak,
Yeah.
and look, you know, what are some of the subverted vanities you may have about your art, not only your poetry, but your music, or what have you? You mentioned earlier, okay, you didn't get signed to a record label, you're not famous or whatever. Did you have a desire for that?
I did when I was a kid. When I was obviously like 17 years old, I wanted
Okay,
like
okay, fair enough,
the next
fair
band,
enough.
right?
So,
That was there. I think too, there's an aspect of me in my life that I'm underestimated a lot, which is kind of it's an
okay,
interesting to be in because as a drummer, most people expect that you don't understand music and you can't read music, right?
okay,
But I play piano. And I took what's called Royal Conservatory classical piano up here in Canada. And I
okay,
grew up through up to grade four. And so
okay,
I know how to read music and I know where changes are and I know how to write music, right? So there's an underestimation because he's just a guy back there, just he's hitting things and calling it music. Bing bang boom crash. Oh, that's music to you? So there's that aspect. I think too, yeah, I mean, of course, I would love it if, everybody ran out and bought my book and all of a sudden it's like, hey, Steve,
okay.
take that. Um,
Mhm.
a couple of friends of mine were joking recently that they're like, I'm going to buy your book and then we're going to have to see if we can off you so that we can make the book worth more money. So I can say, oh, artists only make money when they're dead, so we'll have to get rid of you first.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But there's a part of me, sure, I would love it if people got something from this. I would love it if people, when they listen to my music, enjoy the music and feel something in the music. They don't necessarily have to come back and go, "Whoa, what a drum line that was," or
Mhm.
my favorite poem, there was this line, oh my God, I can't believe you wrote that. Like, if you like everything that I'm part of as a collective, that will make me happy.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
like the songs that I'm playing in. And you don't have to. I mean, sure, there's going to be people that read the book and say, like, oh, I don't know, there's a couple poems in there kind of, they didn't do it for me.
Okay, okay.
That's cool. That's why I also filled it with photographs because I've also not,
But we do live in a more visual world,
yeah.
you know. You
Well,
know,
I've been I've been like for years I was a professional portrait photographer, which is the most, mind-numbing job as a
mhm.
photographer. Everybody's, do this and look over there and do this and do this and do this.
Mhm.
Okay. Sell you your package at Christmas so that I can eat this year.
Mhm.
Um, but photography is always my expression because I'm not a great, sketch artist. So
Okay.
that was always my medium. So I wanted to fill this with images as well, just like words, images, and kind of like here you go. This is the unvarnished Tim. Take it as you will.
Okay. Valentine, may
May I?
I ask you to step in for a quick minute? I have to take a quick break.
All right.
Yeah, and I wanted to take the opportunity to show a couple of your photos, Jim, if that's okay.
Yes, please. Oh, here, I
I,
wanted to do this too. Remember I
oh,
told you postcards?
I love that. Thank you. That's beautiful.
So on the back of what I wrote was, 'cause I found it, which I think is apropos. On the back it says semaphore, a set of gestures intended to convey a message.
Oh, perfect. And
Which
so
I
here's one photo that,
that's the dragonfly that I usually have in my backyard.
love that dragonfly. That is fabulous. And let me get another one or two here and just share with anyone who may be watching here and see. Let me see. I'm very much a fan of nature. So this was one of my favorites.
That was earlier this year in the gutter at my house. She didn't move.
Oh,
Her boyfriend flew away. She didn't. It's a mourning dove. Yeah.
oh. Did she build a nest?
There was a nest there. They build really crummy, sort of like pigeons. They build sort of like nests full of sticks that aren't really much of a nest. So the
Uh,
part was, I think it rained hard a day or two later, so she hadn't laid an egg yet, but it just washed her nest away. So I think they went somewhere
oh,
else.
baby.
But
Yeah, doves are not, they're not very good nest builders. And
no,
I it's because our cats used to be able to catch a dove. There was another one here that I loved. I'm gonna find that if I can. I like the fact, Bungee Christ. And I have to say that one of the reasons that I, suggested publishing your book, your poetry, was because when you read me this poem, or what, it was one of the first ones you sent,
the
right?
one with the open wallets, yeah,
Yes, Open Wallets. And I
yeah.
wish you would read that.
Well, and I was telling the story earlier that it's a time when I just, when you didn't have cable TV or whatever, and your airwaves are filled in the afternoon with preachers asking for money from people that don't have any. So
Right.
I just sat there getting angrier and angrier, and I just wrote free verse this poem, and which then turned into a song that Paul and I later did together. I wrote music for it. So, but yeah.
Will you read Open Wallets for us?
What's that?
Will you read Open Wallets for us?
I'd be happy to. I have
Okay.
the
I'm
appropriate.
going to mute myself. So,
I believe it's under spleen, which is the section of Tim venting his spleen. So
Yeah, page 41.
okay.
I think it's in there. I don't think it's, yeah, it's got, let me just look for it here. I got the book here. Yeah, see, you got the book.
Yeah, page 41.
Page 41. The guy knows my book better than I do. There you go. All right. Open your wallets wide and free yourself from sin. Let's see those phones light up. It's time that you called in. Go get your MasterCard and purge your bank account. We're saving souls today, so make that money count. I'll ask forgiveness on your television screen, both hands in front of me, but still they can't be seen. But after all, I'm not like you when I've done wrong. That's why I'm standing here and bringing you along. Today I give you your salvation for your generous donation. Today we are taking plastic. If your situation's drastic, you better call toll free for your piece of sky. There is a lesson here. It's Prophets 101. We need 1 million more because Satan's on the run. We'll save your soul today for 1995. You'd better call today to keep this pledge alive. Today I've taken your donation, $20 for your salvation. Today I'll sell you your salvation and I'll lie for your donation. And then Jesus jumps off the cross.
Um,
That one. And that was what really pulled me in because I'm a bit of an iconoclast myself. And so I thought, yes, okay, let's see what else this guy has got.
There you go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Well,
you
we're
know,
coming up on time.
Oh,
So
no. Oh, no.
I'm wondering, is there anything more that either of you would like to say? I've been sitting in the background listening and enjoying it. Fabulous conversation.
I would like
um,
A lot.
First of all, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity not to be only be published, but thank you for interviewing me as well. I really appreciate this.
Well, we are delighted to have you.
and
you
I would like to lend, if you would, I don't want to call it advice, but insight. We talked briefly about what our expectations were for our work, and we're going to talk specifically about the book itself. What I have found in the many, many, many years of publishing is that what sells is celebrity. So when your friend said we're going to have to off you in order to make you famous, they weren't too far off the mark in reference to what makes a book sell. Okay. However, on the other hand, what I found is that the people that move their books are the ones that are most active, doing signings, appearances. And tell you a quick story about Dr. Dwayne Dwyer. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He was like a self-help guru, died several years ago. He was a college professor. And when he wrote his first book, what he did was he bought 50,000 copies, okay, quit his job, and went around the country with a van full of books, calling on, his various contacts, associates in the university system and what have you. And he caught the attention of Louise Hay. But he wound up being one of the most popular, one of the highest sellers of all time. Him along with Greg Braden, Louise Hay, Paul Coelho, and various others. So all that to say is that activity sells books. We can't depend on, people that you say, okay, here's my card with the link to where you can buy my book. That doesn't happen. Okay. Some of our most popular, sellers of their product are the ones that buy their books in bulk and they sell them hand to hand. So I just wanted to lend that to you. But the authors that are passive, that say, okay, I published a book and then they go away, they don't sell books. They don't.
Same thing.
It's what you're looking for.
Yeah. It was the same thing in music. If I put the record in a record store, nobody goes and buys it. But if they come to see us play live, we're selling off the table.
Right.
And we make more money anyways because we don't have to fork over $10 to this record store that, you're taking up valuable real estate,
Exactly.
which is what I said, borrowing your wisdom, Bill. What I said to Tim when we first started, I said, yes, it will go up on Amazon. It'll be available that way and everything else, but you're going to get maybe $2 or $3 from Amazon. And sell it yourself to people that you know and people that you don't. And then, much better. It works better.
Well, that's exactly why I get copies from you. That's why. I wanted exactly that for some people.
And he is, boy, so far he's our best marketer, Bill. He's just really put himself out there. Share some of the ways real quickly that you are doing that, will you?
Yeah. There's there's a bookstore up the street that I've been talking to, but I'm waiting until I get my 30 copies. and then I'm going to get them to carry it. Then there's a local paper I'm going to talk to once it's in that store. So I can sort of do the double thing where it's like, hey, I'm great, buy my book. Oh, by the way, this bookstore is great. Go there too. Buy my book in 6 while you're there. So the bookstore is happy. And there's a few other things I'm going to do. There's book fairs that I want to start going to. And again, selling copies, like basically, like you said, out of the back of my car, or like wherever I go, I make sure I have 2, 3, 4 copies with me. So if someone says, wait a minute, I haven't seen you in 20 years, you wrote a book. I'm like, well, yeah, it's right here.
Okay.
I charge.
If I may give you one more piece of advice.
Sure.
And this comes from my many years in financial sales. We call that the circle of influence.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get a bookstore. You ask the bookstore manager, how many bookstores are you associated with?
Yeah.
Can you write me a letter of recommendation?
Yeah.
You know?
Good idea.
Yeah. And the same thing with any contacts. Can you give me a letter of recommendation, or can you recommend me? Can you give me the phone number, the email, or what have you, and use that as a landing launching post, like so and so recommended me to you, said you might have an interest in what I do.
No, I agree. That's a great idea. Definitely somebody. It's always easier as artists for someone else to talk about you, and to be, for lack of a term, to pimp you, right?
Right, exactly.
Like within music, that you need a manager, you need a mouthpiece, right?
Right, exactly.
Calls the clubs, and 6 of the clubs say, oh man, I hate that band, you guys aren't playing here. The manager says, okay, great, next, and moves on. Whereas as the artist, we're like, what, you don't like my band? Oh no, I should.
My feelings are hurt.
Now I'm gonna write nothing but sad songs, right? So if you've got like if you have a bookstore that says, hey, actually he's a half decent guy and we've sold a few copies here, and yeah, okay, I'll give you a little. That's a great idea. A letter of recommendation.
Yeah.
Bill's in Scranton says, I'm kicking butt over there. I think he should.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, it's been great talking with you. I thoroughly enjoyed our session. And Valentine, again, thank you so much for this opportunity. To get to know another soul. So.
Thank you, Bill. I love Bill's interviews because they bloom.
The blooming onion of an interview. That's what it is.
Yeah. And, I could go on for hours with this stuff because it's conversation. It's like me getting to know you, you getting to know me. And, we all have an opportunity to discover things along the way.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So get rich and famous and we'll do it again.
There we go. All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay.
Thank you. It's wonderful to see you, and always wonderful to see you, Bill.
Okay.
Hasta pronto, as they say here. See you in a bit.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
I'll drop it. Bye.